Anthony Hylton, Member of Parliament for West St. Andrew. He represents Waterhouse in the Parliament. Okay. After our discussion last week, he called and said he wants to join because he likes what he heard and what is happening. And as a member of Parliament, you know, so I want to, we should go around and introduce ourselves again, How started, Patrick? Tell a little bit about yourself, which you haven't shared as yet.
Well, first of all, just to make the connection with the area, I started, I should say, I was at the helm along with a number of other youngsters like myself at the time, who got together and formed a youth community organization. And this was back in the early 70s. And this was all around really youth development and all that. At that time, I was living at Farham Road. Right, an easy way to remember me them time, right, for those who lived in the area at the time, was my father was a police officer. Right, so everybody would know who the police officer was in the area. Right, well-respected man in the area and all that. And like I said, that's like the easiest way to introduce myself, right, as it relates to the community. I mean, since then, life has taken me all over the world. I mean, I'm right now, not living in the area, not even living in Jamaica, but my heart is still in the community. It's still right there, and I'm always in touch. So that's my brief introduction.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave Clark. Live, play, and work in the community, Waterhouse, and surrounding areas for years, from back in the 50s, grew up as a kid in the community and become a concerned citizen, about the community development, and excited to hear that we have an MP who is coming publicly, going public about, his works and ideas for development in the community. Very excited to hear, what the MP has to say. Without any further ado, I want to pass it over to everybody else and just, let it flow.
Okay. Well, you know who I am. So we're going to turn it over to Mr. Hylton. You can give us a brief overview as to what he's doing and his plan and all that for the community.
Yeah.
I must say this. Since, Mr. Hylton, since you called me, I've talked with people in the community, and they provide me some questions that they would like me to ask you. So
sure.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I think those questions coming from the community are very relevant. But let me just say that the Waterhouse community is one of the what you could call the mature communities in Western St. Andrew. The other one being the Duane Park area. These are communities that have been settled, developed over many years. When I entered Waterhouse in about 2007, what we found was a community that has been in transition for some time, meaning that the infrastructure in the community, your roads, your water, your institutional arrangements were were by then sort of on the decline. The road conditions were pretty much going on some 40 years now, really in a difficult situation. The community organization, the youths in the community, the associations in the community were few and far. And basically what you had was your traditional, your churches, your school, and you have no other vibrant Waterhouse football club that is, again, part of the heartbeat of the community. And the structures for organization is very weak. And I must say, one of the persons from your period who was away for some time and came back in the community, again with some of the same philosophical approaches, is Chris Constantine. Chris came back, and again after a period of trying to figure out what I'm doing, what my thinking is, or I'm approaching the work of representation to develop the constituency, Waterhouse as an important element of that, and the levels of representation, not only in the parliament, but in the business community and in the other social groups. Chris and I came to an understanding about how we're approaching the work and the vision for the work. And I must say, Chris is really playing an important role in the community. We really wish we had 3 or 4 more persons like Chris in different parts of the community. But it speaks to a time where people like yourselves, and then Michael, I met you earlier on, and we had dialogue around a number of things, and I have known of your work and continued concern and links with the community, and your passion for really community development. Essentially, to my mind, you really have to address some things simultaneously. You have to address the movement out of the community of the more able and capable people. And when you do that, it seems to me we have to look at the housing as one element of the challenge that we're faced with. Housing is important because, as I said, the infrastructure in Waterhouse and places like Durham Park have really over the years, many years. These are communities going back to the early 40s, 50s, and their infrastructure is just simply not what it should be, not what it ought to be. The community has expanded, grown in some sense in terms of size, and the impact on these facilities have meant that these facilities are substandard in many respects. So housing is one area, and the truth is that, I mean, unless you're doing something like rebuilding on what you have, there are very little space in Waterhouse for greenfield community housing development. One such area remains on the Penwood Road in the land that popularly called ready-mix land. We have secured those lands. When I came in, one of the problems was nobody knew who really owned it. We, out of research and work, we found who really owned it. It was an entity in the Bahamas. We tracked them down and eventually got to them and said, look, you can't just have this land sitting down what are your plans? And if you have no plans for it, we want you to sell the land to us, to get the land into productive hands, and so we can develop it. At that time, we're in government. I was the Minister of Industry at the time, but got them to sell the land to the Ministry of Housing, with a view to the Ministry of Housing and NHT to come together to build some houses that are appropriate for the area and affordable, because what you don't want is in building these houses to bring in iron houses, and you're pretty much bringing people from the outside. What you wanted is organic growth, so the people from within are affording these new facilities and can step up rather than stepping out. By stepping up, I mean people there. You have people in the area who are teachers and policemen, other government workers, and others who are NHT contributors and can afford, a moderately priced housing. So we focused on that. We tried to get that going, and before we had done a lot of work. Before we did all of the drawings, shared it with the community, element of the community, to explain to them what we're doing. But before we could really get going, trying to put the resources together, government changed. And with that change, the focus and the emphasis for the new government, because we remain focused on it, trying to get things moving. But when you don't have the kind of governmental support, because this was a project really in government to ensure that we get the kind of resource that we know are available at concessional rates to impact on the prices. It is still on the drawing board, but as I communicated the other day, I spoke to the Housing Trust, and I said, well, what's going on? I mean, we've been at this for some time. Where are we on it? And their response was, because they have a procedure that they go through. Their response was that their research in the demand for housing type in that area indicated that there was very little interest in take up of that. I question that, because in my conversation with a number of persons of some means, and I said contributors to the NHT would be a core cluster. They have indicated to me that a community properly built, with appropriate security arrangement, they would be interested in. So I have said to the NHT, look, we're going to have to. I would like to see the data that you produced, because I'd like to go over it, and I'd like to do some of the work ourselves, meaning reach out to the people and hear their views as to what to do. So point I'm making is that even something like a new housing development to lift the area, it's a process. When it comes to infrastructure, road infrastructure, that is a sore subject for a number of reasons. The truth is that from the time when I entered Waterhouse, the government of Jamaica, the coffers have never been really strong. And within that, the priorities that have been made. And I would say that during our time in office, that was marked as a period where the finances of the government was probably at its weakest. You will recall that that's when we had to do a rescue arrangement with IMF and all of that. And IMF had really imposed a regime on the government that says, look, if you want our help, because of the debt profile of the country, if you wanted our help, you'd have to do what they call, you'd have to at the time demonstrate that you can work with what you have, and only after you've done that, they'll come in and assist. So we went through a period of just severe constriction in the finances, the fiscal arrangement of the country. And so when you talk about road rehabilitation, at the time it was simply that the resources were never there. And it's not simply that the resources were never there. It's of course always a matter of priority at the level of central government. At the level of the community, quite frankly, the cost of those, there is no real sense that as a community we can come together and fix the road. The roads are always seen as a costly arrangement that really is beyond the scope of community involvement. And the community traditionally and even now look to local and central government to really address these capital intensive kinds of programs. So we have had to, over time, really just address these issues on a sort of rolling basis so that you fix 2 roads. If I tell you that in the time I've been in government, we have never been able to get more than 3 roads in any 1 year. And 3 roads, I don't mean 3 roads for Waterhouse, 3 roads for the constituency. And so when you're faced with that kind of challenge, how you identify the particular roads and how you address them is always a challenge. But I think we can say in Waterhouse we have over that period done quite a few roads. I remember the first one I did when I came in, just because the state of it was the West Bay Farm road going down to Capture. That was a sort of mud lake, a mud pit, it's dirt and very poor condition. And that got my attention and the priority, and was the priority project for me to get done. And we did, and the community was better for it. Of course, the thing with road and infrastructure is that they don't retain their form for a long time, because with usage comes deterioration. And then when you look at the question of how we construct road generally, the whole question of the methodology of constructing of road, it has long been a source of just dissatisfaction. That the marl, using marl as the base, has meant that really it is cheaper, but it means that the road in another 4 or 5 years, the road is up for rehabilitation. So what you have is a situation where even where you have the resources to fix a road or 2, by the time you get to move on to fixing others, some of the ones you fixed before are falling into a state of our need for repairs, disrepair. So that's a constant challenge. We have tried different approaches. For example, we just fixed a series. In fact, all the roads in Duane Park were fixed. And so people in Waterhouse says, well, how come you can fix all the roads in Duane Park and you can't fix all the roads in Waterhouse? And the simple fact is that we had to use different modalities. What we had in Duane Park was a program was initiated with Portia Simpson Miller and continue with this government, where we said, well, look, these settlements that were built by NHT monies in the 70s, 80s, they're in a state of disrepair. And NHT, as the original builder, first of all, our argument was that as the original builder, they didn't do a good job of ensuring we had standardized roads. So that in the case of Duane Park, for example, those roads were never handed over to the local government. When I said handed over, that's a legal process, meaning that they were never gazetted in the local government. And so what you had was a situation where those roads were not local government roads. So when you go to the parish council, they would say, look, we don't have responsibility for those roads. So we won't, that's not on our list of roads to be fixed. When you go to NAA, they'll say, no, those are local government roads. And this is, the road discussion is a discussion that we've had for many, many years, just trying to find a solution. One solution they came up with is what you call the one road, the one road agency, that meaning doesn't matter whether it's local government or NAA, this entity fixes roads. But as long as you have this bifurcation of local government and central government, you will have situation as you had in Corville Gardens now, that local government just say we don't have resources to fix the roads, and that's not our responsibility anyways. So for successive members of parliament, including myself, what you had was a situation where it really fell to the member of parliament to mobilize resources, because neither central nor local government saw it as their remit to fix those. So, and that was a result of just poor design in the first place. So our argument to the NHT was, look, you had a poor design, you supervised a development that did not ensure that the roads were at a standard that they could pass over to local government, and now the street they've been in the state of disrepair. We need for you now to make an allocation to fix all the roads, bring them up to a standard where they could be passed over to, because this passing over to local government really meant a standard of work such that the local government would take responsibility for that. If it's substandard, they simply don't. So that's the situation that Corville and those entities that were built by the NHT was in. And so we argued unsuccessfully, included Corville Gardens on that project. And it took another 3-4 years, but eventually the roads were built. And I want to tell you, coming up to the last election, we were arguing, and because we've been at it for about 4 years. And there are every indication that, okay, this year we will move, this year we will move. When I went to the last election, nothing had happened. And the community was just incredulous that anything was going to happen, because they've been hearing that this money was going to come from NHT, this is what was going to happen. Anyway, I mean, we went through the election, we lost the vote. The voter turnout there was low because people weren't seeing anything. But immediately after the election, we moved and all those roads are fixed. Persons have comments about MP, at least you deliver on what you said. And they have to understand, and you have to explain to them. Because you're still, the unfortunate thing is there's still a number of persons in our communities that believe the MP goes to parliament and they vote some money and he leaves with a caucus bag full of money. And he has it in his Jeep when he drives around. He just issues it out and they have access to it. You explain to them that no, that's not how it functions. You get programs. MPs don't get money. MPs get programs. And you have to administer those programs through a bureaucracy that really isn't responsive by and large, and not responsive to communities like ours, which are inner city communities. The fact is they're far more responsive to communities like Norbrook and and those upscale communities, because that's who in any event run these agencies. So that's a second level of challenge when you have to work through the bureaucracy to get things done. But that's the skill and that's the work of a member of parliament. And a member of parliament has to develop the ways and means to engage the bureaucracy, to really get things out of the bureaucracy and get things done. So it's an area of the work of MPs that I think is little understood by communities at large. And therefore, the conversation that you had last week about MPs as Santa Claus really is a phenomenon that really is worth examining. And it's a complex one because, as I said, it has as its base, quite frankly, the inability of communities like Waterhouse and other inner city communities to themselves engage the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy shuns them, quite frankly. And the only real person that the bureaucracy listens to is the MP that goes in and says, look, these are my community, you need to do something about it. But what it means, therefore, is that the role of the MP really becomes, you really have to now get very programmatic and that in every agency, pushing every agency, prodding every agency to get things done. So that's a broad scale, and I just touched that, and I think I've given us an overview as to how I see the challenges and how we now move forward. Let me just touch on how we move forward. The truth is, part of it is firstly the recognition that the resources that are needed, necessary, are not all in government. And we therefore have to build bridges. Two, yes, I mean, people like yourselves in the diaspora, one, but we have to build bridges in the communities. The fact is, Waterhouse sits along a belt that is the largest industrial belt in Jamaica. And so we have had to engage the entities in the belt to say, look, you know, you're part of the community. And so we expect that you will contribute and participate in the development, community development needs. So far, I can say some of them have been responsive. Not all of them. Some of them have been responsive. So that you have entities like Ray and Nephew. I mean, and I'm not going to be invidious, but Ray and Nephew, the work that they're doing with scholarships, for example, for our young people, is quite remarkable. It's quite significant. They each year give a range of scholarships to our community people that has made a difference over the years. The question arises that after you have invested those monies in some of these young people, what happens afterwards? Because we have since I've been there, we have trained doctors, lawyers, business managers, a number of them. We've sent some to school in Cuba, they come back and they're in our hospitals. But they tend to leave the community once they get upscale, and not all of them look back. Not all of them remain engaged. Some do, but that's not the majority. So you have that cycle as well, that even when you train and when you invest the resources in some of the young people, they make the forward progress, they step up, but they step out. And we still haven't, on a consistent basis, been able to sort of get them to come back in to form a cadre of people who are willing to, again, mobilize the youths in the community. So you have a few people. The one you had in the program last week, Ishmael, and I see him on the program, is one of those youngsters that, as he said, I mean, he's in Waterhouse and he wants to remain in Waterhouse. Ishmael has trained himself, has certain capability, capacity, and he's willing to engage and to work. We need more Ishmaels to build really a cohort of people to do the kind of work that you guys used to do back in your days, when you engage the community in very significant ways and prepare to put the resources in. By and large, what we have now is a sentiment that, boy, that's the MP's responsibility. MP should do this and the MP should do that. The truth is, as all of you know, on this program, and as I've been pointing out, what the MP brings to it is a capacity to think through the issues and to understand what the issues are. But at the end of the day, he needs to have the hands to hold to get the things done. Because the MP alone is no magician. He can't make everything happen at every level and in every community. So those are some of the real challenges. It is not all negative. You have, as I said, you have people like Chris who's back in the community, engaging, working with us in some of the programs on the ground to make sure they are implemented and are administered properly. Because it's one thing just to get the program started. You still have to have the administration to keep them going and to make sure that they are guided and deliver what was intended. So those are the limitations as I see. The Waterhouse community has a lot going for it. It's a community known for its culture, its music. And just to end on this note, my vision for the constituency as a whole really revolves around three major things. The cultural economy that is alive and real in areas like Waterhouse. And by culture, I mean, you know, the music. We have our young people who are talented in not only producing music, a number of them are you know, are people who work behind the scenes in music, engineering, all of that comes natural to number for youth in Waterhouse, because that historically has been one of the legacies for Waterhouse. Where we are located in Western St. Andrew, the big opportunity for Western St. Andrew is our logistics opportunity. And we sit near a port, the port of Kingston. I have been arguing as Minister of Industry that that's Jamaica's best opportunity to build a sector that is sustainable and forward-looking. So I've started in my own constituency, and the truth is that we have done quite a number of things that have happened, are happening, so that we build in Ferry. Ferry, what used to be a swamp land out in Ferry, is now one of the state-of-the-art industrial parks in Kingston. The real new addition is in Ferry. My role in getting that going is not well known, but I was central in just getting it going and getting it moving. What we've done in Seaview Gardens, for example, which is right across from Waterhouse, is something that is an evolving story. So that we moved in the largest trucking company in Jamaica to link the logistics operation. We have major investment in that area that has started and is coming. And what we have to do is train our youngsters now in these new skills in logistics operation, forklift operation, truck driving. As I've said to some of our young people, if you want to get a visa and travel now, easiest way to do it is to have a level of certification as a truck driver. It's a global shortage, certainly in Canada, in the US, in Jamaica, elsewhere. We have to train, and we have gotten a number of them who have gone to Canada, train, and they've looked back. I mean, I got a call from one of them the other day, and he's calling me to say, MP, I'm in Canada, as you know, but I want to take up my girlfriend. I want to marry her. I want to take up my girlfriend and get my family going. And so they look back, they reach out. So the skill sets, the new skill sets we have to train our young people in. The technology is critical, digital technology, and we've done training in those areas. We're doing training in those areas. As I said, the logistics operation, forklift operation, inventory management, all of these are new skill areas that are emergent in the constituency. And we have now in the Bagger Park community, we're training a number of our youths in these operations with a view to certifying them so that they can go out in the world of work and make a difference. So those are really the outline. We have to build the housing stock in Waterhouse, we have to build the infrastructure more generally. And so I ended this last one. I know Michael, this one is close to you. You talked about it many times. Ellistow Avenue and Conway. Let me say, that is a good example of how things work and don't work. After months of mobilizing and agitating to get the resources for those roads. Once the resources came, the community then petitioned me and said, MP, our more immediate problem is the water. You know, we're really not getting the water supplies. And if you build the roads, you know, you have to dig it up, because what we really need are new pipes in the community. So we had to, by the time we had agitated for the resources, gotten the resources, was about to go out to tender for contractors to build the roads. And we had to redirect the conversation now and go to NWC and say, look, we have the resources to build the road, but we can't build the road without new pipes underlaying the road. So you have to move now and put in the new pipes. Well, in the way that the government works now, that is a different agency. You're petitioning for a different project that is critical to the overall development. But they have to now identify the monies and the resources to put in the water. So we have to wait to get those resources in place, knowing full well that that is the priority, because if you fix the road and then 2 months or 3 months after you fix the road, they find the money, you rest assured this is something we've experienced time and again. They're coming to dig up the road. And that don't make any sense because, as I said, as you know, once you get the resource and you fix the road, you best know that even when it needs rehabilitation, that's another struggle to get it rehabilitated. So to build it and then have NWA come and say, now we found the money and we're ready to put in the pipe. Don't make any sense. Peer digging up and we're right back to square one. So that's the story of Ellis2. I think we got the money and really had to redirect it to another set of roads in the Waterhouse community to be built. And they have gotten the pipes laid, and we now, hopefully now by this budget year, I'm told, because we've gone out to tender, that we finally able to get that done this budget year. But that gives you a sense as to how you have to work with the bureaucracy, because if you don't explain this, people think the MP have the money. They have the money in their pocket and they must just go out and spend the money. And if they don't spend it, then they're wicked because they're not spending the money. And that's far from the truth. And it's really a misunderstanding. And it's part of what we have to do. And I'm hoping that those who are listening to this kind of understand, really. And we reach out to them in other ways. But I can tell you, and I can tell you before the pandemic, when you call a meeting in the community, it's really the same people that come out every time. Same group of people that come out every time. Most people are really either too busy because everybody's under pressure of providing for themselves and their family. But you don't get the kind of outturn from the community, in part because there's no real community mobilization at that level, the kind of work that you guys, as you said, used to do in the 70s, that, as I said, is still needed today, to have the community mobilize their own issues. And so when you call a meeting to discuss a particular set of issues, you have people ready to come out to engage, to ask questions and to make comments. So I end there.
Oh man, that's a lot to chew on, but Dave, Patrick.
Well, it's always hard to hear, you know.
By the way, hold on, Dave. We are joined by Ishmael. Ishmael is now with us. All right, continue, Dave.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's always encouraging to know and hear the member of parliament who represent the community come and really lay out plans to you and explain circumstances and situations so people can get a better understanding as to what is happening and how it works in government. You know, he's the window. He's actually a window for the people, you know. But there are quite a few things where I really kind of start, you know, understand that I don't. And I'm a realist. I think like people do. They want to see results and they want to understand how the government works and what the government is doing at times. And I hear say that people are not engaging, you know, at a certain level. I think people kind of lost confidence in trying to get government attention and try to get government to do certain things, the community and the well-being of people, especially if infrastructure and thing. And people ask, a lot of people ask them sense of self-esteem and all that thing because of the community, the condition, you know. condition, cognition, choices, and all them kind of thing that people have to make when they're living in these eras. And the condition force a lot of things. When it comes to bad infrastructure, I see and understand where you speak of how difficult it is to get the bureaucracy to work. And if it's hard for you to get it done, then it's impossible for the people almost to get anything done. And this is what speaks a lot about the rise of crime in these communities. Because when you have poor infrastructure, then people have to start talk about police can't drive on the road because there's no road there sometimes. And people can't buy good cars. People can't commerce. There's no, there's no form of commerce going on because, you can't commute and these things. And then, we're talking about a development like a housing development. I remember the last housing development, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that happens in that era is Villa. I don't know if you know Villa, Bayfront Villa.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah. And I think the idea of doing housing development in that ready-mix area, a Waterhouse, is a good idea. I don't know how long that might take for it to manifest because there's a lot of vetting, a lot of planning. There's a lot to do in order to determine, who is going to live there, where the money is going to come from, how we're going to decide who lives there, and a lot of things, concerning that and things. So I would be interested to see in terms of plans, the projections, what time frame we're talking about, and the type of development that you're speaking of, in Waterhouse, because that would be a major, step towards showing the people that, you actually have your hands on things and making things work. Because the fixing of 2 and 3 roads, like what, every election is every 4 years. I don't know if that's how that's done. And I hear mention things like people not engaging. I go back to that again because I know that Waterhouse people, I know how they are. I kind of grew up and I am a part of that community. So I will basically think almost the same way sometimes. And I see where people mobilize resources to build football stadium. I see the people, I think it's the Waterhouse, it's not the government per se, but the people more so, come together and put their resources. So when you say they don't come out and they don't get involved at a certain level, community involvement and everything, I think it's because of the field system of the politician, them, how them approach things and how things work, and they're not explaining it to the people. Now, this platform provide avenue for you to really come and explain. No, we never had this before. Now people can hear from the horse's mouth, from you now, how it works and what you're actually doing and the things that. But I hear talk about logistics also and development. We call the ferry area, the logistics part, and stuff like that. And you get money for those things, which is good. Development, but community development we are talking about within Waterhouse, and you talk about Ray and Neville, Tankwell, and all these other, industrial, entities that are a border in the community and thing, and getting them involved. But I don't know how. I believe those entities, those business entities, have an interest in the community also because they are located, like you say, in the border of the community and things like that. And I don't know how the plans, what are the plans that you have that you can present to the community to get those people engaged and involved in infrastructure development, since as we can't get through to the bureaucracy of the government, and things. Because I believe that infrastructure is more crucial right now than anything else, which housing development is a part of that to come out of that. But talk about water, light, street, roads, and all them kind of things. I think those things are very, very crucial. Those are the things that make an area beautification. Those things that make an area livable, make people proud of them area and themselves and see actual development and things that's happening. Not zinc fence and broken down houses and, you know, hiding place for criminals and all these kind of things, and people just come and set up shop anywhere they feel like without any regulations or any administration or nothing like that. Those are things that need to come to the forefront and discuss, and attention must bring to these things and things. So that's just my little thing where I have to say in terms of that. And I really, like I say again, them say, you know, it is only with gratitude that life becomes truly rich. And you know, I can say, I can extend a debt of gratitude to you, because you come and say you make an effort and you do a lot of things, and you're not credited for it because people really don't know, and your effort will make for kind of get things happening. And, you know, we have an idea still how some way, I should say, have an idea how government work, you know, and how disorganized and how things stay up. Because when you start talk about central government and local government and all these governments that, you know, not saying who is responsible for what, that sounds like then a confusion, you know, to me. And if it's like that at that level, then imagine what the people them a feel, you know, and them a feel the pain of the earth and them something there. But however, I'm going to make somebody else jump in, and I will just, you know, keep jumping in and out. You know, but I don't really have a question, but I really don't really want to get into the question part. I just comment on what you said a while ago and how I feel and what I see. Actually, that is where some of the problem. Chris's idea of this workforce development program that I spoke to him about, that should be like one of the main, I would say that is where I believe a lot of the solution lies, as far as the youths them and getting them involved in, like you say, profession, you know, more career things. I think that encouraging. I think that is one. I think we support. I think we should pay a lot more attention to it, a lot more attention to it, because that is crucial. I think that will help in a lot, you know, and you know, anything else somebody else can add to that?
Patrick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me try and be as brief as I can, because it's like you say, it's quite a bit to digest. And you know, I should say in all fairness that I got the sense that the MP probably felt that he had to come here to defend himself. And I don't think that's really the idea, because the real thing about it is that everything that you have said is nothing new to Waterhouse. It's nothing new to my experience in Waterhouse. I remember some of the same discussions, some of the same things that you mentioned. I remember the discussions around these things, right? Around roads, around housing, right? Around crime in the community. All of these I remember, because part of my work has taken me even to meetings at Jamaica House, right? A lot of people don't even know that, right? And, you know, I say all of that to say that really what is at the crux of all of this is community development, right? So if we're talking about community development, we're talking about the people who are in that community, because people make up a community. And just to really say it briefly and go to the heart of it, because Dave touched on it, right? You all touch on it when you speak, right? I get the passion of the MP saying, right, what he expected to do when he came as a representative to represent the people of his constituency. This was what was at his heart. I got that, right? And then he went on to the difficulties and so on. And one of the things I've been trying to lay out from the start of this discussion is, right, that the main thing that I bring to this, right, is not just my experience, not just my education, not just my overall understanding of how government works and everything, every component of it, but is really about what is at the heart of everything, what I know about community building, right? And because it's gonna take that, but not only that, it's gonna take all that I don't know, because both a learning and a teaching process, right? Nobody has the formula. No one person has the formula, right, to make it right. It is the coming together of all of us, crafting that formula that makes it right. That's what it means. That is what is at the heart of really building the community. And that is why I keep emphasizing, right, that we're really not working against each other. It's really we're finding our way to work together to make it happen, because that's really how it works, right? That seemed to be the secret which eludes everybody, right? Because they've speak to it. They've understood, right, based on his work at community building, right? He understood, you know, some of the dynamics that the MP said as he explained. And then he come to realize that, oh, I didn't realize certain aspects of the government running this area and so on, and the bureaucracy and all of that. Basically, what you're speaking to when you say the bureaucracy, because this is the other thing too. We have to understand all the terms. The bureaucracy really is the system, how the system works. That's basically what you're saying, right? That even working within the system, it is a difficulty, right? And I can bring to it why the system is so difficult, because then I'm going to have to go into a whole lot of teaching now, right? To get into what's behind all of this, right? That makes it so difficult for us to do what we want to do, right? But the most important thing about it is really about education, because it's about trial and error. As you grow, you learn. And as you learn, you make corrections and you do things differently. So like I said, even in our days of activism and so on in the community, we understand the errors that we make and we know how to correct them. And then this is what we bring new to this discussion. That's how this thing really came about. Understand it. This thing came about for us to hatch out the way now, how we move forward. So that's really more what we need to be talking about, and not so much the mistakes that we made, right? Because it's really for us to understand everything, educate ourselves now for move forward, right? And this is really what I want us to really try to focus more on. So I'll hold it at that for right now.
Ishmael, you're from the community. You're there. You know what's happening. I want to hear your take. I know you didn't hear everything that Mr. Hylton said, but I think you get the gist. So can you unmute, just mute? Yes, Ishmael.
Yeah, pleasure again. The irony of all that is, you know, the disconnect, as I said last week, between, you know, Gen Z and the millennials. Back then, you guys felt as if you had a purpose, you know, And with the emergence of the digital era, you have so much trash, you know, going around and seeping into the minds of even myself. Having said that, I am going to say last week I gave my MP, yes, Mr. Hylton, I gave you a 5 out of 10, not because of the work you have done, because I know, you know, firsthand, and I've been a part, you know, of discussions and meetings and even the implementation of some of those, you know, projects. However, so I know about the work you've done in the constituency, in particular in the division of Waterhouse. However, you find that because of, you know, not necessarily just social media, but because of the emergence of this community journalism or journalistic style, you find that there are a lot of narratives going around that MP not do nothing, or, you know, him not care about the people, or whatever the case is. And on the contrary, his vision and his work for you know, the division in particular, is one to behold. Having said that, again, I think I decided I gave him a failing grade because he is so fixated on development that the narrative is passing him in terms of, you know, people will say, and it's not his business to care about that, you know, but as a representative, there has to be a way to combat that, because that side allows for people to think and form opinions, which then becomes false facts, right? So it's just the fact that the breakdown in communication happened, that, you know, for argument's sake, you know, he spoke about Ellis Road, and that has been a part, a sore point, especially the residents in and around that area for a while. Nobody knows how it works in terms of the bureaucracy, you know, but of the faithful few, including himself and maybe Patrick and stuff like that. So that leaves room for people to form their own, you know, opinion about the MP now do this, the MP now do that. If it were his you know, for argument's sake, his assistants or people that knows about the process, that lives around that area, speaking up, this wouldn't be the case now. It's not necessarily that he's not working, that is never the case. The case is that people are not hearing about the work that they're seeing happening. You know, there is no heart is in the community. I'm one of the facilitators or teachers, if you may. And when you tell people that heart is in the community, immediately they think to themselves that heart decides that they will choose Waterhouse as a community to come in to make something happen in terms of education, and that's not how it works. If the MP didn't engage them, they wouldn't be here, right? And this is the part that is missing the residents. So I gave him that grade again, because I wish the narrative would change, and it has to start from the helm, which is him. So if the case is that he's in and around the community, make this be a part of the conversation, not just boy, you know, say nothing now go on and whatever the case is. You know, challenge the members of the community about what do you know of this project? Do you know how it was incepted? If you follow what I'm saying. So right, that for me, that is a part of the disconnect and the issue that's happening now. Because believe it or not, Waterhouse will always support their MP. Will always. But them are going to complain. And most of the time them are complain. Them are complain because they don't know what's happening. So if it is that we can find a way to change the narrative of you know, your MP working for you versus you being so result oriented and not understanding what is happening, right? I think that is a part of how we need to, you know, understand how it works.
The
right?
MP, I heard what you said, my friend. It states that the government actually, the MPs are allotted programs, not like a lump sum of money to go spend like that.
No man. Right. So that is not what I'm. My point is.
Same, but this, yeah, I know. I heard.
Every step of the way, the people, not just myself, the people that appreciate, you know, the member of parliament, saying to them, which is also a little bit of an issue, but we work on the things as it comes. Saying to them, you know, it reached. So this project is at, you know, stage 1 versus stage 5 versus we're almost at the implementation phase. That is what people want to know. Because people fast, you know. You're right? It is what it is, especially as it relates to their personal development and things that affect them. So road will always be a sore point because they use it, but they don't know how it actually works.
Let me say this. Waterhouse people have always been subject to certain experience, and we need to confront those experiences. For example, over the years, all the MP, they come to Waterhouse with the idea that they're going to solve a problem or something. That's how they approach Waterhouse. Not what the people want or what issue the people think is important. The MP, they always come into Waterhouse with their own ideas, what they think is right or wrong for the community. What I want to see from Mr. Hylton, and I've raised this with him before, and I think if we are able to put this in place, then the people will come out. I want to see a plan. Dave touched on it. A development plan for the community. So people can get an idea as to what direction the MP is taking them in. And they can buy.
He wants the projections. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to see something which say, okay, this is what is going to happen. We're going to put this here, this is how it benefits you. You can buy into it.
Goals, yeah.
Yeah, we need that. No politician, none.
And everything, yeah.
Yeah, no politician, none of them have put forward a development plan for our community.
Well, if you can add to that is, how do you get to putting together that plan? I want to hear that too.
Listen to me, bro. Listen to me.
No. I'm saying in his response, if he can speak to that aspect as well.
Because Waterhouse people are not stupid. They are not stupid. They know right from wrong. And if you sit with them, because I remember, you know, in the early days with Sunlight Body and all those people, those guys would talk, and after they finish talking, get up and do something, you know. So people are not coming out, I think, because they don't feel that they're part of a process. if and when the people start to feel that they're part of a process, for example, I'm pretty much sure that this discussion around the ready mix spot and the housing, not many people in the community are aware of this. I'm pretty much sure they don't know nothing about this. People up by Ellistow Avenue and Conway Road, they talk, but they don't. How many of them understand that the problem is not so much with the MP, but because of the bureaucracy and how things structure and what have you? You understand me? People don't know this thing.
Right, and that's what I was getting to, because many meetings happen and people just not come out.
Yeah, but
they want you to come to them.
No, they're not.
Them. So
Ishmael, they are not coming out because they are not convinced that what is happening have something to do with them. They are not. In the early days, Patrick, we used to run community newspaper, journal and all them things in the community.
Yes.
We used to do those things and keep the people informed as to what's happening.
That was part of the foundation of the work.
Yeah. No, this
to stay connected. Stay connected.
We have to find a farm.
At all times.
Mr. Hylton has to lead a process in which we develop a farm that keep the people informed as to what is happening. Whether they're going to be online, digital thing, Waterhouse news or what have you, but give the people information. Don't just have the information between yourself and the member of your executive, and then they will filter. Because some of the members of the executive, be real, they're not in for the community, they're just there for themselves.
And can I just add that this is what this concept is right here now that we're doing. It's really taking it public, it's really taking it to the people, all right, and having that dialogue. So as we are having this dialogue, we're having this dialogue including everybody who watch this.
Of course. That's what I'm saying. So I would like to see Mr. Hylton develop a plan. And it's not difficult because you have software that allow you to
goals and objectives, quantifiable goals and objectives.
Yeah, you have software that not just that, but also software. There's a software named City Search. Right now, you can use.
He already has a plan. I'm almost sure. So it's just that.
I'm saying that present something to the community so we can buy into it. This ad hoc way, you come this government period, you're here, you do this, and you wait until the next election and you do this.
In my yes, sorry about that.
So if we could have some more discussion around that, Mr. Hylton, as to the development plan. Not just ready mix, but what direction you take in the community in. So people can have an understanding, know, okay, my road might not fix today, but down the road, it will be fixed because of A, B, and C.
But let me, I've listened, let me comment. First of all, with respect to a development plan, as you pointed out, that people come with their own ideas. And so if you're going to break that, then it can't be simply your ideas. The engagement have taken place, and the engagement has taken place. The question is at a level. So I know what are some of the key projects and the key areas of concern. Now, the plan, in putting together the plan, the key part of it is the resource part, because an idea that is not implementable because the resource have not been identified, how you get the resource, and the timeliness of that resource. So to make projection, you do one of two things. One, you give an aspirational projection. This is what you'd like to achieve within this time frame. Or it's grounded in more reality, because you know where the resources are coming from, how the resources are gotten and the time frame in which those resources will be available.
Mr. Hylton, just stick up in. I want to say something to you.
Mm.
I'm pretty much sure that a lot of us who now live overseas will, if we see something, we will invest our physical ability and also material resource in the plan. We just need something. If we need something that set out, identify the problem then, and then we engage in terms of how we're going to mobilize those resources. You know?
So one of the things that have come into this conversation is really now the role of the media and how that has changed, and Ismail introduced that into the discussion. It is the case that with this kind of media, because I'm on this platform today because I don't know when you started this, Michael, but 3 years ago, I was unaware of this 3 years ago. I probably became aware of this probably maybe several months ago. I became aware of this particular platform. Now, as you said, it's probably now the responsibility of the MP to have a platform that is constituency-wide, because we're talking about Waterhouse issues today, and that's the focus. But similarly, the people up in Belvedere and in Plantation Heights, they are wanting to hear what are the plans for their community. Their needs are different, but they have their particularized concern. So you really have to think in holistic ways. You have to think broadly about what is the mechanism. And the plan, you have to do them community by community, because at the end of the day, it's community development, and communities have different needs, as we said. But the element of the plan for Waterhouse, quite frankly, is that, and work has started on how we, for example, have to transform Big Road. Big Road is a central area in the constituency and in that part of Waterhouse. And we have started the plans. We have met with some of the operators in the area, people who operate the shops. We did a design about 3-4 years ago as to how we're going to upgrade some of the shops and how the thoroughfare would look from bottom of Penwood Road to the top of Penwood Road. At the time, the resources seemed like it was at hand. For example, and I speak specifically, when one of the campaign promises of the Golding administration was that the CDF funds, which is really just one reliable resource sources, and the CDF fund, he said at the time that he wants to make it realistic so that MPs can actually do something in their constituency, so that it was moving from what was about a small idea of about 15 million to 40 million. The moment he said that, we started to put together the plan for Big Road, design, getting architects to do some design. The reality, what happened then, because of the state of the economy and the whole setup, he couldn't. That happened for one cycle, and then the next cycle changed, and we never saw those resources again. So immediately, while the idea is still there, you have to look at other ways to get it done. This year we've petitioned some sources. They've indicated a willingness to work with the programs that we have, that we outlined to them. And quite frankly, in a conversation I had the other day with the council and others, we said, look, let us meet the community, engage them, and say, this is what we're doing, how it's being done, and to get their input. Really just to enliven a discussion that we had previously. And some of the views and the attitude was, look, let us be careful how we engage, because we engaged them before it never happened. There's a sense of disappointment. We better make sure we have the money in hand this time before you engage, because that's just going to sort of deepen that element of mistrust and look, it's not going to happen. When in fact, that's uppermost in my mind. And it's part of the plan that I gave vent to, spoke to about, got the architects in, did a rendition of what that looks like, share that with members of the community. But it didn't happen because of the resource that we focused on, and that was committed, did not materialize. So you have to just rework, you have to rewind and come again. I haven't lost focus on that, and so I have approached other sources, and we're working with those sources right now to say, no, let us see how we can approach that. And as and when we get that commitment, then we re-engage the community again and say, look, this is where we are with the big road project to get that going. So, part of what I hear Ismail saying is, rather than rewind and come again, just remain engaged and continue that conversation. This is where we are. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. And some of that is necessary. What I find though is that people want results. There's an element. Not everyone see the development process in the way we are talking about it here today. There's a body of people that say we elect the MP and they must deliver X, Y, and Z. And if him don't deliver X, Y, and Z, then it's because one, he doesn't care, or he never intended to, or he never made the effort. Some persons who appreciate the process and want to be engaged in that process, and believe in that everybody, we speak in terms as if everybody wants to. The reality is that not everybody wants to, for a number of reasons. Sometimes their own schedule, their own stresses, their own program of work doesn't allow them to engage in the way that we need to be engaged. And we're talking about it, that people come out and sit and say, here's a process and here's where we are. And then when you say to them, look, we have to change tact, we have to raise the resources in other ways, let us engage. Some of them will simply say to your MP, that's your job, this is what we elect you for. You need to identify where are those resources coming from and tell us when it's there and what we're going to do so we can participate. So you have different audiences, and we have to recognize that. So Michael, so I hear you, I think, but don't assume that everybody wants to be on that journey. That's not my experience.
No,
you have to identify those who want to engage at that level.
If I can just say one thing, Mr. Hylton, before Michael respond, right? I don't think you understand the question that was posed. Well, let me not say I don't think you understand the question that was posed to you, but where we the one would like to see a focus on in responding to that question, right, that Michael posed, right, and of course, Dave also alluded to it, and then I add a piece to it as well, which I wanted you to speak to, is we're not asking you to go too much into the explanation as to why things didn't happen certain ways or why it should, what it entails, right? But it's really about in terms of what is your idea moving forward, right? In terms of how you can engage the people, right? Which would speak to the how, right? Or the other part is what is your idea for the people in terms of this development that we're talking about, which is really at the crux of why we are here.
All right, so Patrick, I hear you well, but let me say this, and I'm listening very keenly. I'm hearing different things. I hear Ishmael saying MP should have a program where we remain engaged and give the information step by step. I hear you saying, look, not so much the explanation that we want. What we want is what is the process going forward. I hear
specifically to the question.
No. So I'm saying there are 3 different questions asked of me. I hear Ishmael saying something. I hear your question, which I hadn't gotten to as yet. I hear Michael's question, and David, I hear David concern. So they're all linked. They're not separate, but they're different focus. They're different focus, right? So I was responding. If I'm gonna respond in a way that addresses yours, Michael, Ishmael, and David, then it really have different emphases, areas of focus. Now, I don't think you're all asking. It's the same goal, it's the same objective, but you're not asking the same question. So my response is, Michael says he wants a plan that lay out what is the plan for the. Dave is in the same vein. Dave said he wants timelines and concrete thing. Your question really goes to a process that is forward-looking and that is engaging, right? And I'm saying, if I apply your response, your question, to Michael's question, which is the process, because you're focused on so that an engage a process that engages the community, the outcome of which is this plan that Michael is asking for. Michael is saying, no, the MP should come with a set of ideas and engage the people around those set of ideas. That's what I hear. And if Michael, if I'm misrepresenting what you're saying, please clarify. But I think it's important. They're all in the same vein about community development, but it's important that we are aligned as to the process.
Mr. Hylton, one of your purposes today is to like lay out the plans that you have for a housing development at the ready mix site, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the purpose, right? You
mentioned,
yeah, well, you mentioned also, I think what we'd like to hear is your like goals and accomplishing that, something measurable, something attainable, something realistic, and something timely. That's what I'd like to hear. And you mentioned something about the big road project,
right.
And that pretty much, I won't say fell through the crack, but it never manifests, right?
Mm-hmm.
It never manifests. Is that correct?
We haven't given up. It remained the goal.
Right. It's just a goal. It's not something that is in works right now either. It's just a plan.
No, it is. No, it is. That's what I'm saying. I was explaining that we've had to shift focus because the resource that was committed to it, that resource never materialized. So you then have to refocus.
Financing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The resource is in terms of financing, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. That means that actually wasn't even thought through or saw through before the plan, before we start discuss or even say reveal the plan to people. And
no, David, you're not hearing me. Let me just clarify. Let me clarify for you.
Yeah.
What
please.
I said was there was an allocation. We were MPs during that period were told that there would be an uplift in the CDF program from what was at the time about 15 million to 40 million.
Right.
In the first year, we got the 40 million for 1 year, for the first year. That gave us the view, when it started, that gave us the view that, okay, this was not just talk, this was happening. And therefore, we were on that basis, putting in the plan for the big road project with a view that in the following year, when the 40 million come about, we'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. As it happened, and this is part of what we talk about, how the shortcomings of government policy shifts because the resource was not, Golding at the time realized that the resources were simply not there for him to, or his own priority shifted, but MPs were never given the 40 million again after that one time. So it's not true to say that it was just an idea that didn't have any basis in financing or planning. It very much did. My point is that what was relied upon as the basis and what was explained to the people at the time as the basis just never happened. And so even as the goal remained, we have to shift focus now and try to now mobilize other sources of financing, which is, and we're about that still. We have gotten a response from a particular agency, and the discussion was now among us, council, myself and others, was, is it the right time to re-engage on this particular issue, or do we wait until everything materializes before you go on to say, no, here's the source, here's the new funding source, and here's what. Well, the what is pretty much addressed by the fact that we had the plans and thing outlined already. The key now is a resource.
I listen to the discussion, and something keep on playing out in my head, and this is what's playing out in my head. When will we see a process in Waterhouse that empowers the residents? When will we see a process? Because a lot of what Mr. Hylton is saying, it depends on him. That's how it is presented. You know, what about the citizen? What role the citizen, the residents have in terms of all these processes? And I'm saying, I want to see something, just like other people. I live in a community, I want to know what's happening in the community. If you're going to put housing ready mix, how is that going to impact me inside the community? You know?
Michael, let me respond in this way. It's again the school of development of which you speak is how I come to this process, which is engage a people, have the discussion, and we work together on solutions.
Okay. Okay.
Now, I am saying to you, Michael, that in the job that I have and the experiences that I have had, you have persons like yourself and everybody on this platform, I believe, for whom that process is the choice that they will make. I'm saying to you, Michael, because you made the assumption a while ago that nobody at Ready Mix knows what's going on, and that's not true. That's an assumption. With people who live around here, we engage them. I had a community meeting that called specifically to discuss the project in the time that we were in government and it was moving forward. I outlined the process to, one, acquire the land, bring the land under our control so that we could decide what happens to it. I went through that. I'm not going back through that. But what I'm saying is, it's an assumption to say that there was no dialogue around the planning, no dialogue about what was coming. There was, in fact.
Mr. Hylton, I don't want to get hung up on that. I want to be very specific.
No, Michael. Michael, let me just say. No, that is an example to discuss some of the ideas that you're positive. I'm saying, I'm using that as an example. Okay. The assumption there was that never occurred, and how we engage the people, that never occurred. I'm saying, if you're just using that as an example, that is not the case. We had a specific meeting called around that to discuss that. People came out, not everybody, some persons came, that it was explained to them. I had the housing people there discussing it. And so what I'm saying to you is, I would love a process, an organic process, an organic process that engages everybody in the community. That I have no difficulty in initiating, organizing, bringing in all the elements, just as how we met this week with the elderly in Duane Park. We mobilized the elderly in the Duane Park area. We broadcast it around the constituency saying if there are people wanting to come to the meeting, they could, elderly person. But it started in Duane Park. It will go elsewhere. We brought in the agencies of government to speak to some of the issues that they have. And out of that came ideas that I now know that when the next budget process comes up in Parliament, I'll be raising particular sets of issues around particular programs. So I'm willing, I'm on board with a process that says pull everybody together. Either you lead the process by ideas, which is one of the things I'm hearing you saying, and this is, Patrick, this is the difference I'm hearing between you and Michael. Michael's version is, Sir Hylton, put something together and come to the people and share it with the people and get them engaged around it. Your idea is the more organic, engage the people, listen to them, shape something that responds to their particular need. And those are, they have the same goal, but they're two different approaches.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this. Crime and violence, gun crime and everything is a major issue in the community.
Correct, correct.
How do you plan to mobilize the people to address this issue? Let me just, in terms of what I'm talking about. Because the historical approach when it comes to crime and violence in Waterhouse is to just flood it with police officers. And when they come in, they say, you know what, you know, we're the gun, so call me and tell me, and then we'll come in. Nobody's going to do that. So, so tell me, just share with us your ideas in terms of this particular problem.
All right, let me respond. In one of the areas, we know the areas where the hot spots, so to speak. And one of the areas in the Balcom Drive area. Next week, Saturday, I have a meeting that was planned at the beginning of this month, in which we engage some people and we said, look, let's have the meeting. Let's set it for 3 weeks hence to give the opportunity to mobilize community